Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Successful with Schizophrenia. I'm your host, Kylie, and I'm excited for our 20th episode. And what is on today's agenda? Well, today we're going to be talking about the symptoms of schizophrenia. Now, you probably know that there are a lot of negative symptoms of schizophrenia, but guess what? There's also positive symptoms and cognitive symptoms, and that's what we're going to be covering today. So, for the negative symptoms, there are inability to feel happy, lack of motivation, and loss of social interest. All right, so the inability to feel happy, I've noticed that I have had that. I do take an antidepressant every day, pretty strong antidepressant every day, and that makes me feel pretty happy all in all. In fact, I was feeling super happy recording this, and I've even gotten a job where my job is pretty much to be happy and talk to people. So that's kind of cool. And the next one is lack of motivation. So, with the lack of motivation, as you can see, I have been a little inconsistent with the podcasting and videos and posting, but it's all coming along together now nicely. So that has to do with the lack of motivation. Something that helps me with lack of motivation is thinking of three things that I need to take care of that day and doing the least pleasurable item or the item that's going to give me the most time or most energy, doing that one first. So, with that in place, I've been more consistent. And the other one is blunted affect. So, the loss of social interest. Now, for me, I notice that my eyes kind of go low or my eyelids go low. And I notice that my mouth is not smiling, it'll be low, and my cheeks, they'll be relaxed. So it really looks like I just don't care at all. And I could totally be mentally present in the conversation, but my emotions or my body language are telling a totally different story. So that would have to do with the blunted affect. And you can also notice that my voice changed from when I was talking about the blunted affect to now, which is my normal tone, which is like a slight smile and smizing, as Tyra Banks would say. All right, which is smiling with your eyes in case you've never seen America's Next Top Model. There you go. All right, so let's talk about those positive symptoms. Now, it was a surprise to me to find out that there are such a thing as positive symptoms of schizophrenia. And I don't mean that there's positive things about it because it can be pretty hard to deal with. But some things that I found were delusions, which would be a false belief about reality despite evidence. So one time that I felt a delusion or had a delusion is when I thought that there was cameras in my home. I was absolutely convinced. No one could tell me otherwise. I would see flashes coming from the walls or from doors or from lamps, and it made absolutely no sense to me why I would see these flashes. So my only conclusion is someone is spying on me, and I felt like someone was specifically watching me change. So that was one of the delusions that I was having. Even though I bought a device that I scanned my entire apartment with to pick up cameras or other equipment like radio frequencies, I didn't find anything. But even that could not convince me that there was no cameras in there. Now that I'm doing a lot better, I realize that was a delusion, but at the time I was too far gone for anyone to tell me otherwise. The next one is hallucinations. That would be false sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So I typically have tactile hallucinations, is where I feel hands on me, whether it's pulling my hair, whether it's touching me inappropriately, whether it's grabbing my ankle. Those are all things that I have experienced. I have also experienced false sound and sight. Some things that I've seen would be dark outlines of figures or just outlines of people in general. I would kind of get a sense of someone staring at me, kind of like when you wake up and you feel like someone's staring at you, or you're in class and you turn around because you see that someone's staring at you, or you just feel it, you just have that sixth sense. That kind of is like the hallucinations that I was having, and also false sound. So for me, I was experiencing a voice that originally started really happy, really positive, very helpful, and then it turned into a spiral where it wanted to take my life over. It was evil, it was making me unproductive, and then there was times where it would come back and then it would be super productive. It was really frustrating to deal with, but I feel like now that I know that I have experienced that before, I find it easier to now have a sense of control over it. About a week ago, I did experience some sound or voice hallucinations, and I just had to shut it down. I was like, nope, nope, not today. And I would just tell myself it's not real and just move on and pretend I did not hear it. And I would listen to music instead. So I would think of something that would distract me. I would sing a song in my head. I would listen to a podcast and I would focus on the podcast. So just mindfulness of what I was doing allowed me to end the hallucination pretty immediately. And the last one is disorganized speech and thoughts. So, for the most part, I feel like I'm pretty articulate. That's what most people say about me. They say that I can speak pretty well. I have taken public speaking courses, so I feel like that has definitely helped me. But I've noticed that sometimes when I have disorganized speech, it's because I'm thinking about a million different things at once, and there's like an inability for me to keep my mouth shut. It's like there's no filter in between my thoughts in my brain and my the words that come out of my mouth. It's just like completely unfiltered, and most people have a filter, so that can be a little problematic if I'm thinking things that are not so nice. All right, so that typically happens when I'm not doing well. I think negative thoughts, and that shows up in the way I speak, and it can be all over the place. Now, we talked about negative and positive symptoms, but there are some positive things to schizophrenia, which would be creative or creativity, and also the ability to reinvent things or invent things in general. Just having the imagination of seeing things or hearing things that aren't there, that means you're a very creative person. And that is a plus. Being creative is positive. Now, we can't let it get out of control, but it is all in all a positive thing to be creative. I know in my last job, I was praised day in and day out because I was able to come up with creative solutions or find solutions that people didn't think of or find efficiencies. So it was helpful to think outside of the box because if you're in the box, right, there's only so much that you can accomplish. So sometimes out of the box thinking is necessary and it can be very beneficial. Now, the last type of symptoms that we have would be cognitive symptoms. Cognitive symptoms would include memory issues, inability to process social cues, and impaired sensory perception. So, we kind of talked about the impaired sensory perception already, but let's talk about the memory issues. So, I don't exactly have the best memory. I'm not sure if it's because of medication. I'm not sure if it's because of my diagnosis. I just know that I tend to forget things a lot. And an example would be a restaurant. I would talk about a restaurant and be like, oh, I kind of want to visit that restaurant. Do you know if it's any good? And someone would tell me, oh, you've been to that restaurant 4 times. And I just kind of laugh and I'm like, well, did I like it? And sometimes they are my memory bank for me. Now, luckily, no one's used that against me because that would be pretty awful of them to take advantage of my memory problems. But I just tend to enjoy things like the first time I ever experienced it. So that kind of is a pro. I can watch as many movies as I want, even though I don't really watch movies. I could watch them and be surprised by the ending every time. Enjoy the movie the entire time. So that is a pro to having memory issues. And the next one would be inability to process social cues. So this one can be difficult. There was times where I had a blunted effect and people thought I just wasn't paying attention or I didn't care. Even though mentally I cared, my body language was not showing that I cared. And I did not have the ability to process social cues. An example would be someone saying that they are feeling fine. And we all know that when someone says they're fine, they're probably not fine. So when I was not doing well, I would ask someone, I was like, hey, it kind of feels like you're mad at me, and I don't really understand why. Um, is everything okay? And they would say, yep, everything's fine. Yep, I'm good. They would say that, and their body language would be telling a totally different story. Now, at the time, I was just confused. I didn't understand why they would say words that did not align with their body language. Now I have an understanding, and for most of my life, I've had an understanding of body language and social cues. But there's been times where I haven't. So that's why I bring it up. Now, there is a periodic table of social cues and body language. I will be posting that shortly on successfulwithschizophrenia.com. That's our website. But let's just focus on the cognitive issues. So, we talked about the memory issues, and we've also talked about the social cues and also the impaired sensory perception. All right, so that is it for this episode. Those are some of the symptoms that I've gathered about schizophrenia, the negative, positive, and cognitive symptoms. And if you think that this was helpful, please like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you got to do. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're really trying to help this podcast grow to the people that need it the most, the people who can really benefit from this information. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check us out on successfulwithschizophrenia.com. And if you see, you can also contact us. You can reach out via the messaging system, or you can also reach out to the email on there. So that's it for this week, and we would love to hear from you. And I'll catch you on Friday. Bye.